Hey everyone, just a quick disclaimer. This mock draft was recorded prior to the Kansas City Chiefs making a trade with the Baltimore Ravens to move out of the 31st overall pick, so that will not be reflected in this mock draft. If you'd like to listen to this mock draft, you can go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and look up The Undrafted. Enjoy the show.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Undrafted, a Dynasty Game Theory podcast brought to you by the Undroppables. I am your host, Scott Belanger, a.k.a. Jax Falcone. You can find me on Twitter at Dino Game Theory. This is a very special episode of the Undrafted. We're doing a full first-round NFL mock draft, and I've invited 4 other members of the Undroppables to join me today, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. And I know a lot of mocks will include trades. We're not going to allow trades just because we're like, we're hard to wrangle just as it is. So never mind. We're not going to try and the degree of difficulty needs to stay right where it is. But what we're going to do though is we're going to do it in a fashion where we're going to pick who we would pick. We certainly may talk about what might happen or may not happen or what other teams might or might do. But we're going to just choose who we would choose. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. And so we don't know who, we probably know who's going first, but after that, there's going to be a lot of curveballs. So we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And joining me today is my producer and good friend, Michael Duncan. Michael, what's going on, brother?
Nothing much. I'm excited to be on this side of the mic, and I'm hoping that I won't hate myself after I pick for the Eagles.
Well, that's assured. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, you just might as well double down and take Sage Surratt.
See, now I just want to leave. Now I'm already dreading this.
Well, it's cool. We're gonna hold you tight, and you're gonna hang right in there. Also joining us, Mr. San Francisco 49er fan, fellow co-founder of the Undroppables, my very good friend, host of the Unscripted podcast and the Fantasy Football Terminator, Term Randall Kennedy. What's going on, Term?
What's going on, man? I'm super happy to be here. Excited for this thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully we can keep it all together. We've taken a few practice runs at this thing, and it's sometimes falls apart at the seams. So
yeah, we definitely need to keep the difficulty level where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Technical difficulties and, IQ difficulties, all sorts of problems we got. Wardrobe malfunctions, but we're moving right along. Also joining me today is our offensive line guru and, part of the No Net crew, Mr. Brad Wire. Brad, honor to have you on the pod.
Thank you for having me. It's one thing to get shouted out about 12 times in an episode, but to be on it is an actual. It's a great feeling. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And then the youngest member of the triumvirate here is Mr. Kyle Larson. Kyle, what is going on, my man?
Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to talk some rookies tonight.
Yeah.
And get it all chopped up.
Yeah, Kyle is definitely just turned 21, so he's drinking tonight. So we might lose Kyle halfway through when that third drink hits in for him. He doesn't quite know how much he's supposed to drink, so it could get ugly for Kyle. But Kyle's a real good draftnik and pays a ton of attention. So I definitely wanted to have him on. So provided he doesn't pass out, I think he's going to have a lot to offer. But kicking it off tonight is going to be the commish, the producer, Michael Duncan. Take it away, brother.
Alrighty, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to just be, our master of ceremonies or whatever. I'm going to do all the boring stuff that Jax doesn't want to do. I'm going to walk us through who's picking, when they're picking, in what order. But I'm going to let everyone else do all the fun stuff and, make the actual picks. So to start us off, obviously, we all know who is on the clock, but to start us off, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock, and FF Terminator is going to be making that pick.
Yeah, there's not a lot of intrigue here with this pick term. So, I think we know which way we're going, but so let's just get this one over with, Aba.
Yeah, I won't leave you guys hanging or twisting in the wind on this one. With the first pick in the 2021 NFL mock draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select quarterback Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, this one seems like a no-brainer. I mean, we tried to find something interesting to say, but there's not too much to say here. I mean, it's just wheels up for everybody in Jacksonville. They get their guy, and we kind of go from there. I actually do think there's intrigue starting with pick 2. So maybe we'll just kind of move fast here through pick 1 and get the commissioner back up, because that pick's going to fly off the board, eh?
Well, on the clock with the number 2 overall pick is the New York Jets, and making that selection will be our very own newly 21-year-old Kyle.
Kyle Larson, the first 21-year-old general manager in the history of the NFL. He's going to probably pick like his Bay, Trevon Morig or something like that. But Term, I got to ask you, brother. Thank you. That's a good pull. It's the only safety I know in the entire draft, so I'm just going to keep mentioning him, okay? Now I'm only teasing. But Term, I really wanted to know, like, you know, you kind of think a lot like a GM a lot of times, and a lot of your content, out there is very well thought out. And, you know, from your spot, I mean, I know we don't have every bit of information, but from the information we have, if you were the GM of the Jets, would you pull the trigger on Zach Wilson, or would you go in a different direction?
So, from a purely football standpoint, Zach Wilson and Justin Fields are pretty equal, right? For all intents and purposes, we haven't met these guys. We haven't spoken to these guys. We haven't interviewed these guys. But Zach Wilson is from Provo. He's from BYU. He's from the middle of nowhere, Utah. And Justin Fields is from Ohio State, the Ohio State, right? He started the petition that got the Big Ten their season. He's the reason that the Big Ten even played football.
Yeah.
We're talking about New York. We're talking about battling the Yankees for the front page and the New York Giants for the front page of the papers, and someone who's going to be in the spotlight all the time, and leadership is going to come into play here when you're talking about quarterback for a New York franchise. That might tip the scale to Justin Fields for me if I were deciding between these two picks.
Lord knows I'd be taking Justin Fields as well. I'm kind of curious now, because you and I definitely agree here. Michael, Brad, before Kyle picks, any thoughts here?
I'm Justin Fields. It's that simple for me. I'm not a fan of Zach Wilson and his very punchable face.
Yeah, that is true, but I shouldn't talk because I think I have one too. But Brad, what do you think?
Most definitely.
Yeah, hey, shut up, Term. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Brad. What do you think?
Oh yeah, no, I think I'm 100% in on Justin Fields here. I mean, he can just do it all. He's such a complete quarterback. There's the rumblings that he can't make all the reads, but I think he'll do just fine. Getting up to speed, he'll be fine.
Wow. So Kyle, the 21-year-old, I think he's going to throw us off the scent here. So Kyle, take us home, baby. What's going on here with the number 2 pick with the Jets?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 4-1 here. I mean, I do love a good Justin Fields. He's definitely quite the player. He showed that in the semifinals against Clemson. And I really respect him, and I think he's a great quarterback. But I think Wilson's really good too, and I don't think he gets enough credit for you guys. I think while Fields would probably come in and be a better quarterback on day one than Zach Wilson will, I think Wilson has better arm traits that will make him a higher ceiling prospect, and that's why the New York Jets are going to select quarterback Zach Wilson, BYU.
There it is. Zach Wilson has been selected, and coming up, we have with the 3rd overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers, and we have FF Terminator back on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, this is your hometown team, Term, so we're gonna let you go last. But obviously, I think with everybody who just went, I'm picking Fields. Anybody else going in a different direction? I mean, we all just pick Fields last, so if we're picking here, we'd probably go in that direction. I'm assuming Michael and Brad, if you got anything different. Otherwise, Kyle, what would you do here? Would it be Fields for you as well?
I think personally I would pick Fields, but I can see the argument for Trey Lance that a lot of people are making. Obviously, they've had contact with both of those guys a lot recently, just setting up their own workout for Trey Lance even. I think if they really do want Jimmy G to be the guy for next year, which I don't think should be something that they take into account when they make this pick, but
Agree.
like they keep saying it. So if they really do want Jimmy G to be the guy, then they should pick Lance, because Fields is going to blow Jimmy G out of the water straight out
Right.
straight out of minicamp.
Michael, Brad, anything?
I am still team Justin Fields. Although I will say that the other two quarterbacks have much less punchable faces, and that is a plus in my book.
Yeah. Hey, Term, you've got your finger on the heartbeat here, so to speak. So give us your take here on what's going on with this pick.
I think it's pretty ridiculous to say that a rookie is going to blow someone who went 22-8 as a starter for this franchise out of the water in minicamp. That would never happen. Jimmy Garoppolo is a perfectly fine quarterback, but it comes down to reliability, and he is simply not reliable. They can't count on him. He's missed as many games as he started. I think he is the mold for Kyle Shanahan. He's gone to 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls, and his quarterbacks were Jimmy Garoppolo and Matt Ryan. He had a ton of success with Kirk Cousins. Garoppolo is a lot more mobile than he's given credit for, and so is the quarterback that we are selecting. And with the 3rd overall pick in the 2021 NFL mock draft, the 49ers select Mac Jones, quarterback, Alabama.
Company man right there.
Yeah, I knew it was coming, and it still surprises me a little bit. I do have a question for you, Term. So something that you said actually kind of struck a chord. He's had a lot of success with guys like Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins, and Jimmy Garoppolo, like very similar-ish type of molds. And it reminds me of what I read a lot about the Eagles when we drafted Miles Sanders, how Doug Peterson was always a running back by committee coach. But then the argument that was always against that was the fact that he never had someone like Miles Sanders. So the fact that he's had success with guys like Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, does that mean that's what he's looking for, or that's just what he's had? Would he prefer someone with the extra ability in terms of the rushing game like Justin Fields, or do you think that he just prefers the Kirk Cousins type of mold?
Well, I mean, I can't get inside of his head. I don't have access there. I just know that what he's had, he's been pretty good with, right? He's one of the best play callers in the game. I mean, he's one of the best offensive minds in the game. His running game is second to none. It could be that that's just what he's had. That could be true. I don't think that to be the case. And listen, I'm not just picking Mac Jones here because he's a similar mold to what Shanahan has had.
Right.
I think Mac Jones is damn good. He had a more productive season last year than Tua did in his single season with less talent around him in the same offense for the same team. Okay. When you watch this kid, there are 3 things I like to look for in quarterbacks: poise, presence, and command. This kid is poised. He's got the ball on a string. He is so accurate. Like, he leads receivers perfectly. He hits the second window. He does everything on the field that a field general should. And like I said, he's more mobile than he's given credit for. He actually ran more RPOs last year at Alabama than Trevor Lawrence did at Clemson. This kid can play football. If I were picking here, if I were the general manager of the 49ers, I would pick Mac Jones. So that's what I'm doing.
I just really wanted to hear your Mac Jones argument. I know you're a big fan.
That was great.
So, but moving forward, next up, we have on the clock at number 4, we have the Atlanta Falcons, and FF Terminator is back on the clock.
Wow,
this is where it gets interesting.
2 in a row, but this is absolutely where it gets interesting. I mean, there's so many ways they can go. Atlanta has a lot of needs. One of their needs right now is not quarterback. They're probably closer to an 8-8 team than they are to a cellar dweller next year, or 8-9 now, or whatever, 9-8. Can't say 8-8 anymore. Lucky Jeff Fisher can't go 8-8. But Atlanta probably won't be picking where they can get a quarterback next year. So the argument for that is to take Justin Fields or Trey Lance while they still can. But at the same time, there's a huge offensive weapon right in front of them, whether it be a tackle in Sewell or Slater. They also have two unbelievable offensive weapons in Pitts or Jamar Chase. There's just so many different ways they can go. I think if I were running the team here, I would trade back. I would look for who wants Justin Fields and extort them. If they're not going to, do that, I'd probably draft the quarterback just because of value. But, at the end of the day, this is a really, really interesting pick, and I'm glad Term's doing it. What do you guys think they could do here, or what would you guys do here?
I think trading back is – you go ahead.
What was that, Kyle?
I'm right there with you, Jax. I would definitely be trading back if I was in charge of the Falcons. But with Mac Jones going off the board at 3, Justin Fields is a really, really good prospect. And
Exactly.
those guys only come across your draft selection availability once every 10 years. Not even then.
Exactly.
So I might just take it.
It'd be hard to pass on Fields. I mean, here he is. He's sort of fallen in your lap. And, if you all feel the same way I feel about him, it'd be really tough to give him up. And again, I'm basically taking Fields or trading the pick for, sort of almost, I even said it like almost equivalent to what the 101 would sell for. And if not, I'll just take his ass, So what do you think about that, Michael?
I'm curious to hear what Brad has to say about this. Would Penei Sewell take their offensive line to a place where they could get maybe one more Super Bowl run out of Matt Ryan? Because it seems like that's what they want to do. They want to make one more run with Matt Ryan.
If the goal is to make one more run, you're calling Chicago and you're calling Washington and you're getting as many picks as you can in this draft. I don't think the play here is Sewell. I think they just lost their center Alex Mack to San Francisco, and that's a big hole. And you can get a guy like that in the 19, 20, early second round range. But the way that I'm looking at this right now, I'm looking at one of those juicy quarterbacks that just fell to me, and I'm looking at a possible out as a post 6-1 release designation in 2022, and I'm taking a dead cap hit that's just about equal to the 2022 dead cap savings, and with the increase in salary cap in those couple of years coming up, I'm just eating it, and I'm taking the quarterback, and I'm taking his rookie contract.
Yeah, that's not a crazy thing
just
to
the
do,
way
Brad.
it is.
Yeah, that's pretty smart term. Take us home. What are you doing? You're the GM of the Atlanta Falcons. You got to make a choice, brother.
Okay, so we're not trading. I would 100% trade this pick.
Okay,
if I could, I would trade it since I can't.
right.
And I have extended Matt Ryan, and his cap hit is such that it's really not feasible to cut or trade him. You've made your bed. He's 35 years old. He's not like he 1 foot in the grave here. You're obviously going to be trying to make one more run. It really wouldn't surprise me if Julio Jones were a post-June trade because of his big number. I'm leaning towards it not, but it wouldn't surprise me. With that being said, I got to take the best player on the board here if I'm set at quarterback, and that's Kyle Pitts. So with the 4th selection in the 2021 NFL mock draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Kyle Pitts, tight end, Florida.
There we go.
Great pick. And before you go, I think that probably would set up for a very nice trade with Detroit. Detroit moving up to pick 4, taking Fields, and then, Atlanta only moving back past, the Bengals and Dolphins to pick 7, where I think they can still get, probably one of the 2 weapons, whether it be Chase or Pitts. But in any event, go ahead, Michael.
Well, next up on the clock, we have the Cincinnati Bengals drafting 5th overall, and Brad will be making this selection.
Wow. I mean, Brad couldn't ask for a better spot for Brad, because it's basically that dichotomy of offensive line versus weapon. Everybody wants him to pick Jamar Chase because, he played with Burrow, and, obviously there's got to be a connection there. He's obviously a dope player, But I've got my opinion. I would absolutely be going offensive line here. I might even double down on offensive line and take an offensive lineman with this pick and their early second round pick. I mean, if they have a great offensive line, they have weapons. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, other sort of tertiary receivers, whether it be Auden Tate or whomever. They can also pick a receiver later in this draft where they have good draft cap. They're fine there. Pitts off the board. I mean, Pitts might have made some sense because they're shallow at tight end. But in that case, I would be smashing Penei Sewell. But Brad, what do you think here, buddy?
You're exactly right. One thing that Tommy put out today was the thing that I've been thinking just about this entire time, and it's especially more truer now with it coming out that Terrace Marshall has had some injury concerns. Why not take Sewell here and draft his other good buddy, Terrace Marshall, in the top of the second? Just like they did with T. Higgins last year, you get a good receiver at the top of the second. You land a good player in top 5, and you're off and running. You got to give Burrow the protection so he doesn't get another scar. I have a few myself, and they're not fun. So I don't think you want to keep him on the shelf any longer. That's just my opinion. I'm obviously very biased, but I'm going Penei Sewell, offensive tackle, number 5 to the Cincinnati Bengals.
There we go. I think for a lot of people that was probably the easiest pick since Trevor Lawrence, in all honesty. It's very clear what they need, and they got it here. But next up will be the Miami Dolphins. Selecting 6th overall, and back on the clock is Brad once again. So what are we thinking, Brad?
Just like with the Falcons here at number 4, if this has fallen the way it has, I'm calling just about every team that needs a quarterback right now, and get him on the phone above the Lions and above Denver. You just can't have one of them fall to them and make your life just a little bit tougher. The way that the draft originally was when they were at 3, there was a lot of people who wanted them to take Sewell at number 3. And the way their line is set up right now, they just drafted 3 guys last year that they really like. Andrew Thomas, Austin Jackson, Solomon Kinley, and Robert Hunt. Now, they took those guys with the idea that this year was going to be their year. Last year, obviously, was way better than they had expected, I'm sure. But Eric Flowers is under contract. He's actually got a pretty big contract this year. They just signed Matt Sakura from Baltimore. So their line is pretty much stacked right now. I think Matt Sakura had a down year last year coming off his injury. This is his second year back from his knee injury, and he should have a pretty big bounce back. I'm getting a weapon for Tua. And it has been rumored that the first wide receiver off the board could be Jalen Waddle. He's been rumored. He's one of the better teammates in this draft. He's definitely a speedster. He's not just a vertical threat. He can do it all over the field, but he's a playmaker. So I'm pairing up, just like a lot of people want Joe Burrow to get paired up with his buddy Jamar Chase. I'm going to pair up Tua Tagovailoa with his buddy Jalen Waddle.
Well, before we do that officially, I think Kyle might have had something to say, and he might have a differing opinion, actually. So I'm curious to see what he says.
Something, then I'll open up to the floor after I say it because it's a little weird. They just drafted Tua, and Tua played well. But with Justin Fields available, do you really want to pass on that kind of quarterback prospect?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? Because, Tua now being available, Fields now being available, but God, what a mess that would be. But I think you could trade Tua for still a good value in the league. I mean, there's teams that are still hungry for a quarterback. I mean, Sam Darnold, who was kind of dead in the water, just fetched a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th. Not that that's a lot, but certainly Tua would net you a first back. So, it's kind of the Kyler Murray, Josh Rosen corollary where a lot of people were saying, oh, no, you're set at quarterback. I mean, if you're not sure you're set, you're not set. So, I mean, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy to have that competition and to see that. I mean, how often are you in the top 5 or 6 in the draft? Again, as you pointed out earlier, how often are you getting an opportunity for a player like Justin Fields? Man, I think these quarterbacks should be flying off the board and really should go like with the first 5 picks because they're just that valuable in real football. Term, I'm not sure what you think of that.
If you're asking me the perspective of the Dolphins, you had your analytic team analyze this the pick that you had, knowing that the Texans were going to have a top 5 pick, and gauge Tua versus this year's class. Obviously, they traded back, so they have no interest in a quarterback. Obviously,
true.
They told you that. They told you that when they traded back. It's unfair to cast Tua away. Now, I was one of the few people who had Justin Herbert ahead of Tua last year.
Bragger.
It's unfair to throw him away after a truncated offseason in which he didn't get on the field. It was the first virtual offseason in NFL history. He was recovering from a catastrophic hip injury, and he's a rookie. So he played like a rookie at times. I disagreed vehemently with snatching him on and off the field. Once they made the move to Tua last year, they should have left him on the field for better or for worse. So I disagreed with that. But as far as thinking about a quarterback here, not even entering my lexicon. Like it's not even on my radar. I don't care who's there. We've drafted Tua, and he has not given you a reason to doubt that pick yet.
Well, Brad did not doubt the pick, and he is taking Jalen Waddle. So that is going to move us forward to the 7th overall pick, which is the Detroit Lions. And making this selection, we are moving back to FF Terminator.
Yeah, this is tough, right? This team is in a complete and total rebuild. This team seems like it's perpetually rebuilding, like it's always in a rebuild. We talked about this kid's leadership earlier. We've talked about how great Kyle is always talking about how great this guy is. I know they just traded for a quarterback, but that was more of a have to get this deal done for Matt Stafford than it was, Jared Goff, quarterback 1. He shouldn't be on the board.
I love this.
I'm like you, Jax. He shouldn't still be here. So with the 7th pick in the 2021 NFL mock draft, the Detroit Lions are selecting the new face of their franchise, Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State.
He makes it sound so good. That's a professional right there. That's a professional host, man. I'm excited for Detroit all of a sudden. They got nothing going on, and all of a sudden I'm excited they got Justin Fields. Holy smokes. That is something, man. I think that may even be that trade where they move from, if it happens the way that we just sort of laid it out, where they just trade with Atlanta and try and get there. I think
just go get him.
Go get him. I mean, this is what they need. They need some life. I mean, here's the good news is if for whatever reason Justin Fields isn't ready, you can actually roll the carcass of Jared Goff out there behind your shitty offensive line and just let it all happen. Take your time. I mean, Patrick Mahomes sat a full year. He played 1 game at the end of his first season behind Alex Smith. So it wasn't like they were torching it. I mean, you can definitely choose to take your time here. Dan Campbell has a 6-year contract. I don't think he's under any pressure to win this year. This would be a really good match. It would be very interesting in Dynasty what we would do with the 1.02 because it's not exactly a great landing spot for him, and he might not play right away. So there's some negatives there for Fields, but what a get for Detroit, eh?
I gotta say, you mentioned that year, Alex Smith played really, really good that year that he played in front of Patrick Mahomes. I think he topped 4,000 yards, and he only threw like 4 or 5 picks all year. He played really well that year.
He did.
I don't see Jared Goff playing near that well.
That's
and
correct.
To go back to Kyle's point earlier, Justin Fields could step in and supplant Jared Goff immediately.
Yes, I agree with
feel
that.
like.
I agree with that. Yep.
All right. Well, that brings us to our next pick. At number 8 overall will be the Carolina Panthers.
Who's making the pick?
I will be making the pick. Actually.
Ooh.
I think it's my first one.
Yeah.
Oh, baby. I'm actually really curious what you guys think, because I think there's a couple guys on the board that make a lot of sense for me personally, and I think I know which way I'm leaning. But I'm curious because I think they could go a lot of different directions, and I think there's arguments being made for a lot of different directions.
Well, here's the thing. If they don't take Trey Lance, you got to think that Denver's taking Trey Lance behind you.
Yep.
So that does also leverage this pick for Carolina to either take Trey Lance or trade it to the highest bidder, to New England or Washington
or Denver.
Or even Denver. Yeah,
you saw Chicago do it with Mitch Trubisky. They trade up one slot because
they were afraid that Deshaun Watson and Mahomes were going to also get. Oh, never mind. Sorry, don't mean to roast Chicago fans. Sorry about that.
I know which direction I would go here.
What would you do?
So, and not to say that this is the number 2 wide receiver on my board or anything, but they have the big guys, right? They have DJ Moore already. I think they have McCaffrey. They just traded for Sam Darnold. If you believe in Sam Darnold, and listen, Sam Darnold's still only 22 years old. He's 22 years old, right? 23. He's been held down by Adam Gase. The most unimaginative offense you could think of. Go give your guy a new weapon. Give him somebody who could take the top off of a defense. Joe Brady, a new weapon. I'd probably take Devonta Smith here.
Woo! Well, Jamar Chase. Okay. I'd obviously be thinking Jamar Chase. Imagine having DJ Moore and better DJ Moore on either side of one another. That would be unbelievable.
Yeah, not to mention Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be sickness.
Imagine DJ Moore. Imagine putting DJ Moore in your slot.
Yep.
And running Smith and Anderson, deep reg 9 routes and digs and posts. Jesus.
I honestly just can't believe that Terminator name dropped Joe Brady and then didn't say he wanted the guy that Joe Brady made into a superstar at LSU.
Exactly.
Yeah.
God, this is a tough pick, brother. You got Trey Lance, Jamar Chase. You got a lot of different ways to go. Brad, do they need offensive line? I think they do need they need a tackle like they need air, don't they?
Yeah, they need a tackle like I need water.
Yeah.
They have Russell Okung was part of that Trey Turner trade last year. Both of those guys are free agents. They have a hole at the left tackle spot. Rashawn Slater is a guy that has for a lot of people, for a decent amount of teams apparently, is ranked above Penei Sewell. I think part of that is due to versatility, but I think part of that is maybe pro readiness. There's a few tiny holes in Sewell's game that can be easily corrected. I put out a little thread on it a couple days ago, but for me, it'd be Rashawn Slater here, and so Darnold does not see any more of those purported ghosts.
Very interesting. Very interesting. This is a great spot for Michael to be in. Michael, process this one out, make a pick, and let's see what happens. I love it.
Well, so something you guys didn't bring up, which actually kind of surprised me, is that the 2 top cornerbacks are still on the board, and Carolina's defense was pretty dreadful last year. They did spend an entire draft on defense last year.
You're right.
Which is interesting. But I think when it really comes down to it, yes, they traded for Sam Darnold, and that's cool. And I'm actually a fan of Sam Darnold, but Trey Lance is on the board, and I think they're going to take him. Well, they are going to take him. With the 8th overall pick, I'm going to take Trey Lance. Ideally, I'm trading back. I'm giving it to someone else, and they're paying me way too much money for it, but I'm taking Trey Lance as the Carolina Panthers. So
balls. I love it, dude.
Given Joe Brady and Matt Rule, they're their quarterback for their regime. So that brings us to the 9th overall pick, which is the Denver Broncos, and making the pick will be Kyle on the clock.
Kyle, what do you got, buddy?
So George Patton and the Broncos front office just had their hearts broken right in front of them.
Absolutely.
We strung that out and then picked Lance.
Oh,
I enjoyed every second of it.
absolutely. I mean, this is so much what they would be just like, so Denver right now. This would be terrible.
And then after that, they're going to look at this board and they're going to see Jamar Chase, who's head and shoulders above the rest of these guys, in my opinion. But they just drafted Jerry Jeudy. They already have Cortland Sutton. They also just
And
drafted
KJ
KJ Hamler.
Yeah.
They already have Tim Patrick, who showed up big for them last year.
Noah
Like,
Fant,
the
Albert
weapons
O.
are
Like,
already
weapons
there.
are there.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can't really draft Chase. Obviously, you'd want to trade back if you can't get a quarterback here. Corner could be the pick. They're not too terribly good there. But on the offensive line, they've been decent, but right tackle has been a huge hole for them. They signed Jawan James in 2019. He's getting paid like $14 million, but he's only played 65 snaps since they signed him. So they're probably not very happy with that signing. So they're going to go out and pick their next right tackle, which will be Rashawn Slater from Northwestern.
It's a good
There it
pick. I
is.
mean, he can play all over the line too. Right, Brad?
Correct, and that's what I mentioned about versatility for him, possibly going ahead of Sewell, because he can play all over. But I was just looking at this. I literally just pulled up Juwan James' contract to see when that potential out was, and it is not this year, but next offseason they can get out. Just like you mentioned, that right tackle spot last year was a swinging gate for them. So all around, the rest of the line stepped up. Cushenberry should have a good sophomore year. I really like the Slater pick here.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Michael.
So Slater has been picked, and that leads us to a string of NFC East teams. Next up, with the 10th overall pick, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and making that pick and actually the next 3 picks is me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just choosing the NFC East. Just gonna what you're gonna just pick like the most dog shit players for the next 2 picks, like just totally tank them. But there's Jamar Chase staring
I heard there's
Jerry
a
Jones
great
in the
kicker
face
on the board.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard there's a great kicker. No, in reality, I joked with someone recently, a Cowboys fan I was on a live stream with, about the possibility of them taking Jamar Chase, and they looked at me like I was insane. And I had to remind them, CeeDee Lamb, like they did it last year. But I don't think they can do it again. I really don't. I think I know what direction I'd go, and it's probably cornerback. Because their defense was one of the worst in the league last year. But I'm curious if you guys have any differing opinions.
No, I mean, this is. I mean, I love J.C. Horn. I probably have him as my cornerback 1. I mean, I'm not like some sort of cornerback fucking expert or whatever, but dude just always looked so awesome, and then he tested through the roof, and he's got that sort of alpha mentality. Surtain would be fine. J.C. is a player I really love, though, so. I think with those 2 on the board, you got to really look defense, and I think you're right on the money there. But it's going to be your choice, brother. I don't know if anybody else agrees with the cornerback pick.
I absolutely agree with corner. It should definitely be corner. The question is just which one of these top 3 guys do you want between Horn, Surtain, and Farley?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's tough, but because I think J.C. Horn in an ideal world is definitely the prototypical athlete. And obviously we've seen Dallas take the Byron Jones, the insanely athletic prospect at the cornerback position. But I think they're just going to make it simple, and they're going to take Patrick Surtain. I think he went into the draft. He was the top cornerback. I think we know the most about him. He's coming from a program like Alabama, and I think that holds a lot of weight. So with the 10th overall pick, the Cowboys are going to be drafting Patrick Surtain. And that brings me to my next pick, which is the New York Giants at number 11. So there's some guys on the board that I did not expect to be here, but I'm curious. Cornerback is on the top of my mind again, but Jamar Chase is still sitting on the board.
Yeah, I mean, when a lot of teams had them linked to, either Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, and I didn't necessarily love any of that. I don't really think their team need is wide receiver. They have Kenny Golladay, they have Sterling Shepard, they have Ingram, they have Slayton. Like, that's a pretty good weaponry. Like, I don't see any reason to need to go with wide receiver. And when you look at it, it's like they definitely need offensive tackle. So I mean, for me, it would be offensive line to protect the fumbling and the I mean, let's face it, Daniel Jones is good at throwing the ball downfield. You get a downfield weapon, maybe give him an extra half a second to throw it downfield. Slayton's a downfield player, and I don't know about this team if they're going to be smart, but I would definitely with Jamar Chase, he's really tough to pass up. Obviously, with the curveball of Waddle going earlier, I would easily pass on Waddle here, but passing on Jamar Chase would be a lot more difficult. So in this scenario, I might take Jamar Chase, but under normal circumstances, if it was just Waddle or Smith, I'm going with like Darashaw or one of the other, what is the other guy? Tevin Jenkins or something like that. But I think Darashaw is the better player, I guess, but I would be looking offensive tackle.
And I like, you'll never go broke taking a profit.
That's right.
Yeah, they may have pretty good wide receivers, but let's give Daniel Jones one more weapon here and take the best player still on the board.
Brad, tell me about Christian Darrisaw. Does he fit the Giants' needs at the offensive line?
So I think their need is more on the interior than it is on the tackle. They obviously just took Andrew Thomas last year. He stepped up late. Nate Solder opted out last year. He's coming back. Cameron Fleming he can play, and Matt Pert played decent in time at last year. They did lose Kevin Zeitler at the right guard spot. He was a big guy on the interior. He was their anchor last year for the entire year, basically. So I don't think they're going line here. If I'm Gettleman, I'm wetting my pants that Jamar Chase has fallen this far and probably smashing the button on someone else because I'm picking up my mess. But yeah, I'm thinking about Micah Parsons, pairing him with Blake Martinez, and bolster my defense a little bit. Obviously, everyone else is trying to catch up to Cowboys on offense. So why not go against the grain a little bit here? Go defense, protect yourself while you're wetting your pants.
So, Brad, that actually was exactly where my mind was with this pick. Even before we started this, Micah Parsons was a guy that I could see, and I know we're supposed to be doing, and we are doing. You
should do what you should do in this spot. So stop messing it up and take who you take. I don't want to hear any more excuses putting it on someone else. The listeners
I'm not putting it on anyone else.
You tell me who you take. Oh, they might take this guy. That's what I thought.
I would have taken Jamar Chase at like the 3rd overall pick. That's all I'm saying.
Then take him right now. If you're the GM of the Giants, brother. I'm not going to let this slide. We got a number of picks left. Who are you taking?
We're taking Jamar Chase at the 11th overall pick. And here I am as the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles with the 12th overall pick. And I want to go home.
That's why he was going to take Micah Parsons.
I want to go home.
Yes. He was trying to make himself get there.
It was always Jamar Chase. It was always Jamar Chase.
No, go ahead and pick for your lowly Eagles. You're not getting Jamar Chase at number 12 with your Eagles. Not letting it happen.
This pick is actually really, really easy for me. I'm thinking J.C. Horn. The Eagles have not drafted a cornerback in the first round since Lito Shepherd, which
best cornerback in the draft.
And it may lead some to believe that they won't, but there's a crazy. I can't see them picking another wide receiver in the first round. I cannot. And honestly, I'm not sure Devonta Smith is really what the Eagles offense needs. So unless anyone has any large differing opinions that they'd like to talk about, I am going to make it simple, and I'm going to take J.C. Horn for the Philadelphia Eagles at the 12th overall pick.
They're your
Yeah,
Eagles.
I'd like to say
Chalk
two
it up. I
things
love
here.
it.
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I would have also taken Jamar Chase in the top 5 of the draft. 11 is stupid. I don't care what wide receivers you have. I'm taking him there. But
Dave Gettleman
for the
won't, though.
Eagles-
I want to be very clear. Dave Gettleman will not take Jamar Chase if he's on the board at 11.
with the Eagles, what I read is that they've talked to Terrace Marshall an absolute ton before this draft.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
We're not taking him at 12. Well, okay.
Okay. Well,
We might
obviously
take him at
he would have
12.
been more in the
We
in the
shouldn't.
conversation at 12 prior to the medical combine where he apparently has injury issues. So what do you think about the Eagles taking Marshall in the second round now?
I love it. And I think that's the main reason that I go J.C. Horn here. I have a massive drop off after the top 2 cornerbacks and maybe Caleb Farley, pending his overall health issues. But I think there's a lot of solid wide receiver options that are going to be available at the top of the second round, whether that be Rashad Bateman, Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore. Like one of them is most likely going to make it to the second round. So
and even if not, you get guys like Diami Brown, etc. So yeah, there's
Exactly.
definitely depth at that position. So you'll be able to get somebody that you like there, but there's not going to be a J.C. Horn available.
Exactly. And I have very little doubt that the Eagles will make the correct wide receiver pick in the second round. We've never screwed it up before, and I don't really have any reason to doubt our front office. So, I took J.C. Horn, and we're going to move on and get out of the NFC East for a while. But that does bring us to the 13th overall pick, which is the Los Angeles Chargers. So making that pick is going to be, who is it? It's Jax.
Yeah, go ahead, Term. You got something to say, brother?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I mean,
got
for
something to
me,
say.
oh, sorry, I didn't know. Go ahead.
I have a question. I have to pose to you guys. If the Giants somehow get Jamar Chase at 11, and they have Jamar Chase, Kenny Golladay, Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, is this like the year for Daniel Jones? If he screws up this year, is it just over with him?
Oh, yes. If he screws
Absolutely.
up, it's 100% over.
Yes. That's got to be one of the best offenses in the league. They'd have to be a top 10 offense at that point.
So the only thing that could hold that offense back in this hypothetical would be Jason Garrett, right?
Yeah. Right.
So they used motion the least amount of any team in the NFL last year. They were the most unimaginative offense. They didn't score a lot of points. Obviously, Saquon Barkley went down early. There's a whole thing about the splits between when Barkley and Jones both start, the game again and finish the game together. And Daniel Jones is a much better quarterback. Yes, this is the year for Jones, and I think he's going to answer the bell. If you look at the metrics, everything from his freshman season to his sophomore campaign, all the advanced analytics stayed the same or got better, even though everything around him was falling apart. Both his tackles opted out. He had a second offensive system in as many years. His star player got hurt right to start with. He had nobody that could get open, nobody that could catch the ball when they did. They would have made the playoffs if Evan Ingram could just make one catch, despite how bad they were on offense. So this is a team that could win this division. I guess you could say that about any of the teams in this division except the Eagles. But I really like Daniel Jones this year.
Fair
but
enough.
To answer your question succinctly, yes, this is the year for him.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, I think Jamar Chase is certainly gone by pick 11. There is some talk, and there is a sort of a little bit of a live betting market that Jalen Waddle will be the first wide receiver off the board. I just would be shocked, but hey, stranger things have happened. At the end of the day, though, when Jamar Chase is off the board before 11, I think the pick for the Giants at 11 is the pick that I'm going to make at 13 for the Chargers, which would be Christian Darrisaw. They need offensive line help, and I think an offensive line, an offensive tackle is going to help Daniel Jones succeed more than another redundant weapon, even though that weapon is dope. I think they need time to throw more than they need, another weapon to hit. But that's just my opinion. But at the end of the day, I think the same is true here with you'll sense a theme with me. It's always offensive tackles all the time. I mean, in this draft, you absolutely need to have protection. Justin Herbert, obviously loves to throw the ball down the field. He stands in there with no fear and delivers the ball even under pressure. Imagine if he had just a little bit more time. This pick is very simple for me. It's absolutely offensive tackle, Virginia Tech, Christian Darrisaw.
Nice pick.
Yep. So Christian Darrisaw is off the board at pick number 13, and that brings us to pick number 14 overall, which is the Minnesota Vikings. And Brad, you will be making their selection.
And the Vikings just got their heart broken because they need.
That's exactly right.
That is correct.
Do they go in another offensive line situation here? I mean, do they look at Tevin Jenkins, or do they maybe look at the interior offensive lineman?
They need interior offensive linemen too.
Elijah Vera Tucker, maybe is that the pick here, Brad? What do you think here, brother?
So they took Ezra Cleveland last year. They bumped him inside over the year as the year went on to replace Drew Samia, who was absolutely shitting the bed, so to speak. He's a very good run blocker, but he's just nothing in the pass protection. So Ezra Cleveland, he was drafted as a tackle. They could certainly bump him out and pick up Vera Tucker. But the way that I think I'm going to go here is I'm gonna rip some other hearts out. Is I really like Tevin Jenkins as a prospect as well. He's in the top 3 ahead of Darrisaw for at least one of my other good offensive line people that I bounce ideas off of from time to time. On Twitter, he goes by DTH_Mason. I believe he's in his top 3. Darrisaw is at number 4 for him. So to feed off of him for a little bit, that's where I would go is Tevin Jenkins. Obviously, PFN does not like Tevin Jenkins very much, but I mean, what else would there be to do for them to get here? I don't know what else is even that big of a hole for them. Is there anything else that you guys see?
No, I'm with you 100%. I think that offensive line is what they should be targeting here. I mean, I suppose they could also look for Caleb Farley at corner. They don't exactly have great corner play. Jalen Phillips, maybe the edge player, but I still think you need to protect Kirk Cousins and give him time to hit his weapons. Maybe even a weapon. I mean, with Thielen getting a little old, I mean, maybe they look at Devontae Smith here, which is certainly a possibility, but what the hell was that? That was crazy. But I think I would still look to that offensive line. If it's Tevin Jenkins or Elijah Vera Tucker, one of those 2 players would be the pick for me. But Brad, let us hear it.
So they took Jeff Gladney last year. So
yeah.
And they could use an edge rusher, but they really need to address their offensive line.
Good point there.
Real quick, before we get to the pick, Kyle, 20 seconds. What are you thinking?
I'd like to add that when we're having this like tackle versus guard debate for Minnesota, they lost their tackle Riley Reif in the offseason to the Bengals. And like Brad said, they moved Cleveland inside. So it definitely has to be tackle over guard for me, especially considering I don't have a guard in this class who even approaches the top 20 prospects overall.
There it is. So, Brad, final pick. It was Tevin Jenkins. Offensive
Correct.
tackle,
Yep.
Oklahoma State. All right. So that brings us to 15 overall, which is the New England Patriots. And we all know who's making that picks. It is our very own Jax Falcone, local Patriots fan. So, oh, God, great. Mini Tom Brady. Get out of my face. What are you thinking, Jax?
Hey, you hold over me, you guys, with Nick Foles. I mean, think about the quarterbacks that have held over Tom Brady: Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, Nick Foles. I mean, it's really embarrassing. And then he torches Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and like Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning. But no, give him Nick Foles or Eli Manning, he's in trouble.
Nick Foles haunts his dreams. Like he still takes that one personally to a level that I truly don't understand.
He takes
crazy.
everything personally. That's how that's how he's got that.
So the Patriots have a huge need here, and there's a guy sitting on the board that probably shouldn't be sitting on the board. He's right in Bill Belichick's wheelhouse.
Well, I think I know who you're saying, maybe, because it's definitely who I'm going to pick. But anybody else got it in before I go? Because this is a fun pick for me.
I wouldn't be shocked if they took a linebacker or even an edge rusher. No edge rushers have been picked, so they'd have their pick of the litter. Same with linebackers. It just wouldn't surprise me, given what the Patriots tend to do to draft one of those positions. But I think at the end of the day, I think the pick is pretty easy. I mean, you did sign Nelson Aguilar, but
No, I'm not going Devontae Smith. I mean, for me, it's Micah Parsons.
Bingo.
Micah Parsons just screams. And for me, he's that last, elite player in this draft. I mean, you can start looking at Caleb Farley and Jalen Phillips, and there's some other players. I mean, obviously, there's some skill position players we like, and whether it be Najee Harris or even Devontae Smith. But for me, it's like this is the Dante Hightower sort of lineage. He can rush the edge, so he's a perfect Bill Belichick player. I mean, he could play tight end for crying out loud. I mean, this kid is so talented. So for me, it's just such an easy pick. I'm so excited that Micah Parsons is available for them. Obviously, if they don't go up and get a quarterback, especially like a Justin Fields, which would delight me, then I would be slamming for Michael Parsons. So smash it home. With the 15th overall pick, the New England Patriots select linebacker out of Penn State, Micah Parsons.
It is in. The pick is made, and that brings us to our next pick, the 16th overall selection. Kyle, we're coming back to you for the Arizona Cardinals at pick number 16. And I don't know about anyone else, but, earlier this week I read a couple mock drafts that have the Cardinals trading up for a guy at this position where there's someone still sitting on the board that I thought was going to go with the last pick. So I'm curious to see where your head's at.
Yeah, so this is hard for me because I ranked I ranked the prospects for every team that I have a pick for. And there's two guys still on the board that I had right next to each other in the rankings, and that's Caleb Farley and Devonta Smith. And I actually had Farley ahead of Devonta Smith when I ranked it out, but I honestly didn't think Devonta Smith would be here. So I'm going to ask for a little
to your
time
board?
to think.
Well, I'll give my
can...
2 cents. They don't have Patrick Peterson, and from what I can remember, they have very little talent at the cornerback position. But Caleb Farley does offer certain red flags that wouldn't shock me to see him fall decently past this point in the draft because he has a pretty uncertain injury history. He reminds me a little bit of Sidney Jones from a few years back, obviously with a less recent injury, but just a lot of question marks surrounding him. I think we don't really have a good understanding, especially with the COVID year, how healthy he is right now. And that's the only thing I think that would scare me away from Caleb Farley, because otherwise he might honestly be the most talented cornerback in this draft. So that's my 2 cents.
So for me, I don't think they need a wide receiver. They're gonna get whatever they can get out of AJ Green, and they have plenty of talent there. They have Hopkins and Christian Kirk.
Isabella?
For me, it's cornerback here, and it's the next best cornerback on my board, and it's Greg Newsome from Northwestern.
That kid.
Yeah, his film is tremendous. Friend of my program, Unscripted, Eric Crocker, loves this kid, and he was a cornerback. So if anybody's going to,
he's legit.
That's the pick for me. It's Greg Newsome.
I'm with you, Term.
Yeah, he's a guy that I've been learning a lot more about recently, and he's been kind of rising up my board in terms of of these cornerback prospects, especially with Caleb Farley's injury history.
Kyle, which way are you going, Bubba?
Yeah, in terms of talent, I still have Farley in a tier above Newsome, but the injury is the big deal here.
This is your team, baby.
It's your pick.
Because
you are
of
the
the
GM.
injury, because I don't like Newsome, I'm going to have to go with Devonta Smith here.
I love it.
We'll
That's
go
fun.
ahead and set up Kyler Murray for the next 8 years, however many years it's going to be.
I love this
Devonta
match.
Smith and DeAndre Hopkins.
I will say,
I love it.
a quick thought on that. Because I do agree with you, Term. I don't think that wide receiver is necessarily a position of need, but I also, having watched franchise waste quarterbacks in back-to-back franchise quarterbacks in Donovan McNabb and Carson Wentz, the wide receiver is basically, I think it's always something that you can add talent to, a lot like the Pittsburgh Steelers have done really, really well. And even, you never know what's going to happen.
Yep.
And I think being able to add a talent as amazing, as special as Devonta Smith at the 16th overall pick is hard to pass up on.
So so did I hear that right? The Cardinals drafted Darius Hayward-Bay.
Oh, slice.
Oh,
Let's move it along.
And
Michael,
the
let's
Raiders
go.
also
Hey,
got
yeah,
their
we're
heart
going-
ripped
no,
out. with their
actually-
next pick.
yeah. Next up is the Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, good Lord. At the 17th overall pick, and that is Brad. You are on the clock, Brad.
So just like you guys were talking about, Greg Newsome is a guy that I'd be looking at right here. A lot of people think that their offensive line has absolutely gone to trash. I am not one of those people. Colton Miller took a big step forward each of his last 2 years. They are bringing Richie Incognito back, he's coming off an Achilles injury. It was not, I don't think it was a full torn Achilles, so it's not as bad as a normal one like Marlon Mack's. Colton Miller has talked up their what I'm assuming would be their new center, Andre James, and Denzel Good played well when Incognito left at guard. So I don't think they're in as bad a spot as a lot of people make it out to seem. But for me, I'm going defense just the way that they've done all offseason. Like I said, Greg Newsome would be a guy I'm looking at. But I think I'm going to bolster the linebacker spot here. And JOK is staring me right in the face. I don't know what else you guys are thinking, but I think that's who I'd be leaning here. JOK. Anyone else have any other thoughts?
So they have a clear need on the interior of their defensive line, and if I'm the Raiders and Christian Barmore is staring me in the face, man, I think I got to make this pick here. But
I actually disagree with both of you guys because I'm going corner all the way if I'm the Raiders. Sure, you just took the shot on Trayvon Mullen and other guys recently, but I don't think those guys haven't proved a single thing to me when they've been playing. They just haven't been very good at all. And you still have Farley and Newsome on the board. If you think Farley's healthy, it's him. If you don't, it's Newsome.
Well, Brad, you're on the clock. You have selected JOK. Unless, I guess, can you take backsies? Probably not.
No.
You've selected JOK. Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa. Dang it, I almost had it.
Koromoa.
Koromoa, linebacker out of Notre Dame. I love the pick, Brad. I think that they need a strong presence on their defense, and he's a guy that I've really started to like the more that I've learned about. And I can't wait for the Eagles to not pick him because he's a linebacker.
Oh yeah.
But moving on, we have on the clock, Brad, you're up again at the 18th overall pick, and we are back with the Miami Dolphins. This is their second pick of the first round, and earlier we had them taking wide receiver Jalen Waddle at the 6th overall pick.
Before we get there, I do want to say one thing about Owusu Koromoa, and that's he has the LB next to his name, but that dude played snaps at defensive end, slot corner. Even he played like 11 snaps at Notre Dame last year outside at corner. He played some in the safety and then some at most at linebacker. But he's really more like Derwin James or Isaiah Simmons than he is like Nick Martinez or like a pure middle linebacker.
Yeah, he's a chess piece, right?
Reminds me of Malcolm Jenkins, actually, in the way that Malcolm Jenkins played very low percentage of his snaps at safety. He was playing in the slot cornerback a lot. He played like a quasi linebacker role on the Eagles defense a lot back when he was just a tad younger. So that's what that reminded me of.
it's that Joker role, right? That you can just line up anywhere and he, like Kyle said, he can rush the passer, he can drop back in coverage. He can play all over the field.
Yeah, that gives your defense tremendous flexibility depending on how they they line up against you, they can't necessarily, line up tight and spread out and catch you sleeping because he can move out and, like you say, cover outside. So it's a pretty interesting, chess piece as I mentioned. But Brad, on the clock, what are you going to do with pick 18 with Jalen Waddle in tow for the Miami Dolphins?
For me, this is where I'm looking defense as well. A lot of talent has slipped. I think they're good at corner. So Greg Newsome is out of my mind here. They need some pass rush. Obviously, I don't think they got to the quarterback a ton last year. Azeez Ojulari is, again, another guy that's staring right in the face. A lot of people would love for them to go Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, but I am not supplanting Myles Gaskin with this pick. I'm going Azeez Ojulari.
We have our first edge rusher off the board. Yeah. And I think the really interesting thing I keep hearing about this class is I'm not sure anyone really knows who the top edge rusher is. I don't think anyone really knows who the first guy off the board is going to be.
It's very deep at the position. You're going to be able to get an edge rusher that could come in and have an immediate impact in like rounds 2, 3. I mean, very deep.
Yeah, I think it's very deep, but not necessarily as top heavy as we've seen in past years. Like, there's not a Chase Young, there's not a Bosa.
Right.
So I think that's going to make the middle of the first round especially extremely interesting.
I'll add that I published my mock draft on the undroppables.com today, and I also had the Dolphins taking the first wide receiver off the board and the first edge off the board, but I had two different players because I had them take Jamar Chase and actually Kwity Paye at 18.
Kwity Paye was the guy I was thinking about. But does anyone have any other thoughts on the Dolphins, Jax, possibly before we move forward?
No.
Perfect. All right. So with the 19th overall pick on the clock now is the Washington football team. And Jax, you're actually on the clock now for the football team. So
yeah,
you're
indeed.
up.
And yeah, absolutely. And my fantasy nemesis, Chris Carrenby, is a Washington Redskin fan, and I texted him the board, and so I'm going to make that pick for me right now. And as the Washington Redskin from the district
Football team.
Yeah, sorry, I'm an old guy. I'm so sorry. For the football team, when they're going to change their name again, it sounds like
Demon Cats.
Yeah.
I think they should leave it the football team.
I don't know, man. I'm just going to be like the old guy who called it the Brooklyn Dodgers. You know what I mean? It's like, get out of here, old man. But with the 19th overall pick, he wants me to take a certain player. But I'd love to hear what you guys think real quick. If anybody has anything they want to say about this before I snap this pick off.
I don't have any strong feelings.
Yeah, I'll hop in and say they probably need like offensive tackle or maybe like a linebacker or a safety. Obviously, the top tackles are off the board. At linebacker, you have Zaven Collins from Tulsa, the small school guy. He'd fit right in. He's a really big dude who can actually cover pretty well. And then you have one of my favorite players in the draft at safety, Trayvon Moehrig, still available out here.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are all great spots. Go ahead, Term.
No, I was just going to say, their defense was obviously the cream of the crop of their team. They could bolster the offensive line, but the top guys are gone, and I'm not a reach guy. I'm just going to take the best player, and it kind of coincides with a need. I'm either going to take Newsome or Mooring here.
Yeah, I mean, if it's me here, I'm taking Newsome just because I love that player. He's definitely a guy that I really like. Mooring, also a great choice, but got to stay with CMFK, and CMFK says that the Washington football team is going to draft offensive tackle from Alabama, Alex Leatherwood.
Ooh,
yep, you heard it. On the clock, Chicago Bears.
I dig that.
Number 20 overall. Chicago Bears, and making that pick is Kyle.
I will say you talked about Newsome for football team, but like they have Kendall Fuller and William Jackson. They're definitely set at corner. Those are two great corners to have.
Sure. With the way the NFL is going now. This is just a personal opinion. You can't have too many corners, right? They're throwing the football so much. There's so many wide receivers all over the field. If you can lock up
You
that,
need 3, right? You know.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So
I was going to say
Anyway.
that I basically have the exact same opinion in terms of cornerback and wide receiver, where if you can get a very good talent there, I think no matter what you have, you do it. I mean, look at the Ravens a couple of years ago. They had like
Yeah.
3 or 4 top cornerbacks in the league, and it's just it's
It's
you
never
take what
too
you can
many,
get,
right?
because
Right.
eventually you're going to run out. But Kyle, you're on the board with the 20th overall pick, the Chicago Bears.
Please take Denver the Tony.
No. I'm going right back to that position we were just talking about, which is corner. Because obviously they drafted Jalen Johnson, but not totally sure about what he's going to be. We're not sure if he's going to be the real CB1. They lost Kyle Fuller to free agency to the Broncos, which is a big loss. Obviously, they brought in Desmond Trufant, but is he really the guy you want to trust? And then, I mean, you could look at offensive tackle, and it's a mess over there at right tackle for them. But they have Jermaine Ifedi, who can probably fill in for a year. Or they can draft somebody at that position in the second round. But with Leatherwood off the board, like, you're looking at not a lot of tackles, and obviously you don't want to reach. So I am going to go
here
with Caleb Farley.
Oh,
Actually,
There it is.
Ooh.
There it is indeed. Caleb Farley coming off the board, cornerback, Virginia Tech. I do have one question. Brad, did you see any instant upgrades on the offensive line on the board right now, like Elijah Vera Tucker, who I think is still the top offensive guard? I don't think we've drafted like an interior guy yet. Is
We
that
have
something
not.
that the
Yeah,
Bears need?
Yeah, no interior guys have gone yet. That is who I would have taken here if I'm Ryan Pace. I'm jumping for joy that Vera Tucker made it past Washington and the other couple teams before me. Right now, their right guard spot is basically like an open hole. As Kyle mentioned, that they
right guard or right tackle?
Right guard.
What happened to? Isn't Cody Whitehair their right guard?
Cody Whitehair is their center.
Sam Mustafi was playing center last year.
So Cody Whitehair will probably be their center. Cody Whitehair jumped to left guard because James Daniels got injured. Right now, their right guard is Alex Bars, who, like I said, is basically like an open hole. So Jermaine Ifedi they signed to play right tackle. I would be taking Elijah Vera Tucker, and I'm slotting him right into right guard. That's where I would be going.
Okay.
Who's on the clock with the Colts?
The 20. Oh shoot! So the 21st overall pick is the Colts, and I am on the clock with the Indianapolis Colts. So I am currently torn in a couple different directions. I wish that there was a left tackle available with the retirement of Anthony Costenzo. Is that how I say his name? But other than that, I think that they're probably going to go defense. So I'm a little torn between Kwity Paye, possibly Greg Newsome. I think that they can, again, I think having too many cornerbacks is a good problem to have. And then possibly Christian Barmore at defensive tackle. Do you guys have any thoughts or opinions on that? Because I think the offense, if there was a top offensive tackle on the board, that's probably who I'd want. But
yeah, I think if you go down, you got to look at Samuel Cosme or Eichenberg, the kid from Notre Dame. So you got to really kind of look at those two guys as the next couple of tackles on the board, and certainly they're going to start appealing to some of these teams in the late first round just because there's so much needed offensive tackle. But I guess if they can play, they can play. Maybe it's. I mean, Vera Tucker, didn't he play a little bit of tackle in college, or am I dreaming? Didn't he play left tackle some?
Yeah, he's short for left tackle. He's not quite the size that you would want. That's like the knock on him. That's why he's got that OG designation. I really like Eichenberg. while he's not as fast and as fluid of a mover like in the open field as a lot of these other guys, he is an anchor at left tackle. His sets are fluid. His kicks are fluid. He's just as good as Cassan's on the pass, and he's very powerful in the run game. Just when he's not in the open field, like when he's on a guy, he's on him and he's not getting away. So that is where I would lean. But I've done this pick 100 times in the mocks that I've done, and I've gone a couple different ways. I wouldn't. I do think they need a corner. I think they need defense, and maybe Eichenberg falls. Maybe they trade back up in the first round. This is one of those teams that's always wheeling and dealing, and they can trade back up and get him. But personally, if I'm not trading, I would be taking Eichenberg and protecting Wentz.
Term, Kyle, any thoughts before I make the pick?
I don't have anything particularly poignant to add here.
All right.
I have one thing. You have T.Y. Hilton on a 1-year deal. You have Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, who haven't shined, although they've shown they can be something, but they haven't necessarily shown that they are something. And Rashad Bateman's still here. I love Rashad Bateman.
I thought about Rashad Bateman, but I think what it came down to for me was I think that they'll have the ability to add talent at wide receiver later in the draft. And I think their needs on defense are just a lot bigger. I would love to add Rashad Bateman and give Carson Wentz another awesome target. I want to keep him happy, but I am going to go with Kwity Paye, edge out of Michigan. I think that they really need that pressure on defense, and I think the fact that he was my number one edge rusher going into the draft, so being able to get him at 21 was awesome for me. So that brings us to pick number 22, which is Kyle for the Tennessee Titans.
Let's hear it, Kyle.
Yeah, so I could tell you about the Titans' needs for weeks. Obviously, got the shirt on, everything. But I'll just jump to the position I'm on right now, which is wide receiver.
Yeah.
Obviously, A.J. Brown is elite. He's a wonderful weapon. They signed Josh Reynolds. And then after that, it's a bunch of nobodies like Khalif Raymond, Nick Westbrook. I don't want to play any of those guys. And you lost Jonnu Smith as your receiving tight end. So you need somebody to catch the ball. You need somebody to catch the ball across the middle of the field. And I thought Rashad Bateman would be off the board by now. So it does give me pause. I was ready to just go Elijah Moore straight off the bat. But Rashad Bateman is a terrific prospect, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts between the two.
Yeah, and Term, I have a question here because this is very interesting. Like, wide receivers pretty deep. If you and I are running the Tennessee Titans right now, Term, and Greg Newsome is staring us in the face, and we do need corner, is Greg Newsome a better fit and player for this team right now than even as good as Rashad Bateman is, or even Elijah Moore is at wide receiver for this team? Which way would you be leaning? Because both are team needs and both are, kind of best player available. What do you think about that?
So if I'm the GM or, in that room, my first thing would be, all right, what is our identity? What do we hang our hat on at the end of the day? Mike Vrabel is going to run the football and play defense.
Yep.
So we're going to run the football. We're going to play defense. All right. So let's gauge the landscape of the division that we're in. We want to win our division. In order to do that, who do we got to go through? Well, Indianapolis is out there, and then you've got Houston and the Jaguars.
Houston is cross them off.
They don't count.
Houston and the Jaguars should not factor in this year. So the ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl, and so to do that in the AFC, you got to go through Patrick Mahomes, you got to go through Josh Allen, right? The Bills and the Chiefs. You need defense. You don't have a safety. You don't have a corner. I can get wide receivers.
Right.
Listen, Bateman is my number one wide receiver. Like Elijah Moore is my number two. I'm speaking of fantasy purposes. The fact that these two guys are here is awesome for that, but we're talking about real football here. And
Yes, we
if
are.
we're running the football and we're playing defense, then we've got to shore up the back end of our defense. And the fact that Morig is out there and the fact that Newsome is out there, I think one of those guys has to be this pick.
Yeah, that's well said, man. That's why you're on the show. And I'm going to press you one step further. You got to decide between Morig and Newsome. Which way are you going? I love your process right here. What do you think here? I've got my answer ready to go.
I would probably lean Newsome just because, again, you can get safety talent later on.
You and I are in lockstep. You processed right through it, and for me, this pick would be absolutely Newsome. And I wouldn't blame someone for going the other way because it's close. That's why we just had the conversation.
It's very close, and they need a wide receiver.
They need a wide receiver, so it's not a bad pick. It's just trying to find that optimal pick, and I'm with you there. Newsome would be my choice as well. I don't know if we swayed you, Kyle, but you are now still on the clock. What do you think after we had that conversation for the scouts and we broke that down? You listening to us, or are you going with Bateman or Moore?
Well, I have to say that if you told me I had to pick between Newsome and Morig, I wouldn't give Morig a second thought. It would be Newsome every day. Like, I don't know where you're thinking they have no safeties. They have Kevin Byard, who's like the best safety in the NFL. Probably not the best, but top 5 easily.
He's a good player.
Armani Hooker has been very good. Matthias Farley, they signed from the Jets to be their third safety to fill in if anybody gets hurt. I think they're fine at safety, especially in the first round. But, yeah, I'm going to go with I'm going to listen to Mr. A.J. Brown because he wants us to pick Elijah Moore. I'm going to pick Elijah Moore. I can't say no to him.
Elijah Moore is going off the board.
Love that. Love it. He
is.
just stuck to his guns. Good job, Kyle. Way to stick to your guns. I love that.
Wide receiver, Ole Miss, going off the board to the Tennessee Titans with the 22nd overall pick. And that brings us to, I believe, Kyle once again with the New York Jets at the 23rd overall pick. Now, this is their second pick. Their first pick was obviously BYU quarterback Zach Wilson at the number 2. So,
Kyle, what do you got here?
Well, you guys hit it on the head about secondary last time, and I'll listen this time with the Jets because there's no A.J. Brown on the Jets telling me to pick Elijah Moore. I didn't think Greg Newsome would be here. I was looking at a guy like Asante Samuel Jr., but I'll definitely pick Greg Newsome since he's still here.
I think that's spot on.
Well, the next pick, go ahead and announce it before we get too excited, but go ahead.
So the next pick is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 24 overall, and that pick will be made by Brad Wire. Brad, what are we doing? Where's your head at?
I mean, this is so good, right? So before we let Brad make his pick, I want to hear Term, right? So Term, there's a ton of people saying that they should pick Najee Harris, and Najee Harris is available. Between you and the fence post, if we're running that team right now, I would tell anybody who wants to draft Najee Harris that they've lost their mind and we need offensive line help. We need multiple offensive line spots. Elijah Vera Tucker is staring us in the face if you want an interior offensive lineman. And, I mean, if you want to dig deeper, Sam Cosmi at tackle or whatever. But, I mean, for me at this particular point, I'm looking at Elijah Vera Tucker and just adding to that offensive line and probably looking at tackle with the second pick. I mean, we'll find ourselves a running back, but we're not going to be able to throw the ball down the field to any of these 3 wide receivers. Big Ben is not going to stay healthy, and whomever the running back isn't going to find fertile soil unless they've got offensive line help. So for me, it's absolutely offensive line. What do you think, Term?
Yeah, I again, you hit the nail on the head. You can get a running back later. And Najee Harris and ETN and those guys, they're great eye candy and they're tempting, right? You want to reach out and get them. But if you can't block them up, what's the point? If you can't keep your quarterback upright, what's the point? And that offensive line has been in decline ever since, their coach, they got hired by the Broncos. Shit. Anyway, they've been in decline for Munchak. Yes, Thank you, Munchak, Mike Munchak. they've been in decline ever since he left town, and they're getting a little long in the tooth. The guys that are still there, I think you're right. Elijah Vera Tucker's got to be the pick here. They don't need defense.
Yeah, are we talking your language here, Brad? I mean, we set you up on a tee with this offensive line talk.
You're pulling at my heartstrings here. I do not think that you guys hit the nail on the head. I do not think that they are quote unquote pigeonholed into taking a running back here, as some people have said in the past. Obviously Najee Harris fits what they want to do, but the way that they played offense last year, would they average like 40 plus passes a game, and I mean that because they couldn't really run the ball, but the last time that they took a running back in the first round was 2008. They picked Rashad Mendenhall. Obviously, I think we all know how that worked out. They have not picked a running back before that in like 20 years. So I am not going running back here. I've talked about it a little bit before. I think the most pro-ready tackle in the draft at this point is Eichenberg. Ike whatever, according to some other draft analysts. But Eichenberg for me here fits what I think the lunch pail Steelers want to do, is get to work day one and hit the door running. I would be more than happy with Elijah Vera Tucker here, but I think that the need at tackle is bigger than the need at guard here, because they just drafted Kevin Dotson last year and they still have David DeCastro. So their guards are covered. It's the center and the left tackle spot that they need the most. So I'm taking Eichenberg and running home.
There it is.
The Steelers got their left tackle help, their tackle help, and that brings us to the 25th overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Term, you are on the clock.
Yeah, so I mean, this is pretty. I mean, they got holes everywhere, and they drafted their franchise quarterback number 1. This guy probably still shouldn't be on the board. Like I said, he's my top wide receiver. So with the 25th pick in the 2021 NFL mock draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select wide receiver Rashad Bateman from Minnesota.
Nothing wrong with that pick.
That was easy. Give Trevor Lawrence another weapon.
I mean, it's interesting because, of course, they have Shenault, they have Chark, and they have Marvin Jones. Obviously, Marvin Jones is more of a stopgap. This would certainly put some pressure on Shenault and Chark in terms of, fantasy, right? I mean, this would be kind of a blow to both of those guys, or at least one of them. We just wouldn't know which one. I mean, that would be a very, very interesting situation, because Marvin Jones is probably going to get his at least for a year. So one of those other 3 guys, whether it be Bateman, Chark, or Shenault, would be on the outside looking in a little bit. Obviously, they'd still be involved, but lowered expectations across the board for some of those players.
Yeah, so I wasn't thinking in terms of fantasy when I made this pick. I was thinking, for me, what I saw from Marvin Jones last year, he looked, pretty close to done.
Right.
I'm not sure how much they're going to get out of him. So I'm not sure he'd be on the roster if I were the Jaguars GM.
Right.
But such is life. He may not even make the team, especially if we make this pick. Right.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, talk about a 3-headed monster, though, when sort of Marvin Jones, like you said, moves out of the way right away. And then you have Bateman, Chark, and Shenault in the middle. Wow, that'd be pretty fun. So pretty fun pick. Nicely done.
Plus James Robinson out of the backfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are we going, Michael?
We are going to the 26th overall pick. The Cleveland Browns are on the clock. Brad, you are back once again.
Well, this pick seems to me like a luxury pick for Cleveland. They don't have a lot of holes all around. One guy that they did lose, who is kind of rumored to be coming back, is Sheldon Richardson. One guy that has slipped a little bit is Christian Barmore. Certainly would add to their interior up front. They just brought in Jadeveon Clowney to pair with, oh my God, my brain. Miles Garrett.
Garrett.
Miles
Yeah.
Gaskin.
Thank you.
Gaskin. Yeah,
Miles Gaskin, yes. Miles Gaskin playing end,
the famous
picking up all
Miles
those
Gaskin.
sacks and swinging helmets.
Exactly. I love this pick though. I love it. Best player available. This Cleveland team is loaded on both sides of the ball. You know, they've got a few spots where they could go, but really they can kind of, you know, they can let the board fall to them, which is crazy when we're talking about the Cleveland Browns in that way. But it's true, man. They can take literally BPA and almost any position and just add to an already strong group for at almost every position.
Yeah, this is a no fucking brainer for me. Like, Barmore is a great defensive tackle. You lost Sheldon Richardson. You lost Larry Ogunjobi. You kind of need somebody there. Put Barmore in there. That's exactly who I had in my mock that I published today. Definitely Barmore. So easy.
Awesome. All right. Well,
I really
Lock
like
it up.
nice and easy. What was that, Brad?
I was just going to add, I really like what Stefanski's done with this team. Total 180 flip for them. It's incredible to watch. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's nice to see them have an identity and, you know, be functional, I guess. It's bizarre. But that brings us to the team that abandoned Cleveland back in the day. That is the Baltimore Ravens at 27 overall. And Jax, you are on the clock. Where are we going?
This one's easy too. I mean, if you guys could script it any better for, you know, the Baltimore Ravens who lost their all-pro guard before last season, they had really two holes at interior offensive linemen. And a lot of times when I do these mocks with the Ravens, you know, I'm looking down at the Wyatt Davis sort of range and wondering if, you know, it's worth, you know, quote unquote reaching for an offensive guard. And in this particular case, Elijah Vera Tucker somehow falls to pick 27. This is an absolute match made in heaven. I think Baltimore could, you know, if Tucker's not here, they could look, you know, defense edge. They could go with a weapon on offense. But for me, this would be the quickest, you know, card going right up to the podium. Elijah Vera Tucker, guard out of USC. He can play tackle. I mean, he's just a versatile offensive lineman. This one's easy.
Yeah, I think that one was really easy. I think the Ravens would be exactly like you said, driving a car up to the podium at this point to get it in as fast as possible.
I'd actually offer a different opinion. I'd
Go for it.
Be going
Tell me why.
I'd be going edge if I was the Ravens. You got nobody there. You lost Matthew Judon. Jalen Ferguson, not very good. You still have guys like Joseph Asai who are athletic freaks. Jason Owe was incredibly fast. Jalen Phillips is also an athletic freak. You have like your choice of athletic freaks at edge right now. Obviously, none of them are incredibly polished, but you still have like even Greg Rousseau is still available too. There's so many options at edge, and I'd definitely be picking one of them if I was the Ravens.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, in most of these mocks, I'm always taking edge there. And Jalen Phillips kind of falls there as well. There's been some talk that Jalen Phillips is going to go in like the top 15. He's been, you know, I don't know if they rise or whatever, but I mean, you know, according to, you know, the masses, he's been rising. But again, I think your most valuable asset on that team is Lamar Jackson. Not close. And if you're not, you know, building your team to support and surround him, I think you're doing it wrong. Granted, you're not wrong at all about their need of edge, and I think they're going to get one. But I think you can, you know, get a couple of – I'd probably double up with a couple edge picks later, you know. But I'd want to lock in that offensive line, lock in that ability to run downhill and to move people off the ball. And with J.K. Dobbins and Lamar Jackson, that's going to be dangerous if they have that offensive line dominating. You know, but you're not wrong.
And you hit the nail on the head there, really. The way that they played last year after losing that big interior, it doesn't matter how good the tackles are. It doesn't matter that you have Ronnie Stanley and Orlando Brown at tackle if you're getting guys in your face in a half a second up front in the interior. So, like you said, this is a slam dunk pick for me. Elijah Vera Tucker slides in easily in the interior and improves them tremendously day one.
Well, Jax, you get to continue on and pick for the New Orleans Saints, who have the 28th overall pick. Where are we going?
I've got a couple ways to go. I'd actually, to be honest, I'd like to hear what Kyle has to say about the Saints here. What do you think, my friend?
Well, the guy that I mocked them is still available, and that's linebacker Zaven Collins from Tulsa. They've had a pretty big hole at linebacker for a while. They've tried to fill it with guys like Alex Anzalone, but haven't quite found the guy. Zaven Collins, 6'5", big dude, can blitz really well, hits people really hard, and he can cover. He's kind of like this is a really like successful comp, but he's like Brian Urlacher light. He very well may not be as good as Brian Urlacher. That's a high bar to meet, but he plays similarly.
Term, you got anything on this particular pick with the Saints?
No, I mean I like what Kyle just said there. They've got so many places that they could. This is another team that could sort of like the Browns. They could just like let it kind of fall to them and see.
I agree.
Best player available.
Yeah, they don't have like glaring needs where they're like, oh my god, if they don't get one of these, they're screwed. I mean, their defense was really good last year. You're right. They've got a hole there, but here's where I'm thinking. I've got a guy that I am really excited about. If Jameis Winston is their quarterback and you've got Michael Thomas, and if I can get the hometown kid and I can scroll down just a little bit and I can get myself Terrace Marshall at this pick, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Terrace Marshall in, keep him in New Orleans and let him play with the big boys here and really try and open up that offense and see if Jameis can air it out.
I think you just broke the hearts of a lot of Packer fans.
Yes, I did.
I can dig it, but I'll add one thing. Corner is also a big need for them. They lost their second corner, and then Marshawn Lattimore had some legal issues over the offseason, so who knows what's going on with that.
There just wasn't a cornerback. I mean, what is it, Stokes or a couple of the other guys there? I like Kelvin Joseph, actually. Yeah. That would probably be my next corner off the board. Samuel's a pretty good player.
Samuel Jr., yeah.
Yep.
But I'd go with Kelvin Joseph there. That may be a good pick too. I kind of like that spot. But it's just too fun to pick the hometown kid there.
Well, Term, that brings us to the Green Bay Packers, and I think Terrace Marshall's off the board. So where are you going at number 29 overall with the Green Bay Packers?
So they've got several needs that should be addressed here. Their offensive line, I know they've got Bakhtiari could miss some time to start the season. They have no swing tackle on the roster. Defensive line is sort of like they've got a couple of guys that are coming to the end. Lancaster's on a 1-year deal. Lowry is probably going into his final year in Green Bay. So Gunkhurst has got a tough decision to make. The Packers haven't drafted Aaron Rodgers a single offensive weapon in the first round since he's been there, I think, which is pretty ridiculous to think about. They could use a wide receiver. I mean, they've got Devontae Adams, and I know that Rodgers likes Alan Lazard, but he's not really anything special. So I'm of two minds here. There are a couple of guys that I'm sort of torn on. I think that the pick would have been Terrace Marshall. Probably should have kept that to myself. I guess it comes down to how you feel about Purdue's Rondale Moore versus my top. They could use an edge rusher, and I think Jalen Phillips, the kid out of Miami, has shown some real promise. I think the streak continues. I think we can get a wide receiver later, and we probably will. But I think Gunkhurst is going to probably address that defense and try and get Rodgers over the hump against Brady. That offense they had their way with that Packer defense in that game up at Lambeau. So we're going to take Jalen Phillips edge out of Miami.
I want to
there
point
he
out one
goes.
thing. And
Go
obviously, you wanted Marshall before he got picked, but with wide receiver for the Packers, like Adams isn't re-signed past next season, and he's gonna bring in a pretty penny wherever he ends up. So wide receiver is definitely looking like something they're gonna need soon.
Yeah.
Michael, where are we at?
We are on to the Buffalo Bills at 30 overall, and honestly, I was hoping for Jalen Phillips there.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills do not really have an option next to Jerry Hughes, who is on the wrong side of 30. So it's going to become more and more of a need.
They have Mario Addison, who's also well on the wrong side of 30.
True, very true. They don't have a young answer next to Jerry Hughes or Mario Addison. So I think that edge is still a very good possibility here, and there is a guy that I like. Then I've also thought a little bit about maybe going for a cornerback, but I'm not really sure if there's one that I like enough for the end of the first round necessarily. And then there's a small part of me that wants to go with Travis Etienne, actually. Give them an electric option out of the backfield, make the defense really fear, that backfield, because I do like Najee Harris, but I think Etienne is lightning in a bottle. And I think having him next to Singletary and Moss is a better combination. He's a great pass catcher. And I just can't get that playoff game where I think they ran the ball literally 0 times in the first half out of my mind. So what do you guys think?
Well, I think
I'd be going
Kyle.
edge like you said, and I'd be going right after Jalen Phillips' teammate Gregory Rousseau from. He's a bit of a project, but obviously they have those two guys who are over 30 to play this year, and Rousseau can work his way up behind him.
What's their cornerback situation? Because I mean, Kelvin Joseph out of Kentucky might make some sense if they need a corner. Don't they?
They have a corner? They have a cornerback one who is an All-Pro, and
yes,
Tre'Davious White.
They have Tre'Davious White.
Yes.
But I mean behind him, obviously.
Behind him, they don't have much.
Yeah, they really don't. They had a guy, I think he might have left in free agency. I don't know why I'm blanking right now, but cornerback is a very serious consideration for me. But
I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have to beat the Chiefs, who I think are going to throw the ball a little bit.
Yep.
And so that's the team you need to beat. And I don't know that ETN makes it any easier for them to win that game. The edge certainly does, and I think the corner. I would be looking at either Kelvin Joseph or any of the edges that you guys think are good. I mean, Owe is a physical freak, and
so that's the guy that's on the top of my list right now. And it's mainly because they have those older options at edge right now, and he will have time to develop. And his ceiling is he's just a physical. Yeah, he's incredible. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I think there is risk there. But Buffalo has been really they haven't been risk averse, but they've been really, really good at actually developing talent.
Yeah, they're well coached. Exactly.
That they're well coached, and that's why I'm just gonna make it. I'm gonna make the pick. Jason Owe out of Penn State, edge rusher. So that's what I'm going with, and that brings. Yep, go on.
I know I agreed with you on the edge point, but they also did bring in AJ Epinesa last year. Although he didn't prove much, he's kind of already doing that project type defensive end role.
Yeah, I think they felt like they needed to take Epinesa, but I don't know that Epinesa is going to ever be anything. So it's sunk cost corollary. I think
and also
swing until you find something. Yeah, right, exactly. I'm not sure Epinesa is
scenario,
the answer.
2 years from now, if you've got Epinesa and Owe, it's okay, great. Awesome.
Exactly.
I mean, especially with the way that a lot of edge rushers rotate in today's NFL. I mean,
we're down
too many.
We're down to the last 2 picks, and it's the Super Bowl teams. Pick 31 will be the Kansas City Chiefs, and pick 32 will be the Tampa Bay Bucks. Michael, take us home.
Jax, you are on the clock right now for the 31st overall pick, the runner-ups, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. I mean, my eyes go immediately to tackle. I look and there's Samuel Cosme, the tackle out of Texas. I don't know if there's a better tackle in this draft remaining. So I'm going to ask Brad Wire. Is Cosme a good prospect, a good player? Can he plug and play, or is there a better plug and play option at tackle in this spot?
So Cosme is like one of the most polarizing tackle prospects of this draft. There's plays where he's absolutely incredible, he's out of his mind, and there's plays where you have no idea what he's doing. It's kind of like mind-boggling to me, because like you expect so much out of him because he's so big and he is a physical tower, but some of his footwork is a bit of a mess, which can be cleaned up. Obviously, just might take time. The way that I would be leaning is they have no one at center right now, really. I would like them to give Nick Allegretti a shot, but Landon Dickerson, Creed Humphrey are right there on the board. That's kind of where I would be looking, and to see maybe what other tackle falls later in the draft. They can always make a move there later.
That's very interesting. Go ahead.
I'm no offensive line expert. I won't claim to be one. But there's a tackle that I absolutely love in this class, and I want to bring his name up. I want to pound the table for him, and that's the guy out of BYU, Brady Christensen. He's not talked about much in the first round, but this dude turned in the highest PFF grade that a college offensive tackle has ever brought in over an entire season. And then he went to his pro day, and he turned in over 90th percentile in every single test that he took in with bench press, 3-cone, 40-yard shuttle, vertical jump, and broad jump. He posted a 100th percentile test grade in broad jump at 124 inches. The dude's 6'6". He has great technique. The only knock on him is that he served a 2-year mission and he's 23 years old. But if you're the Chiefs and your Super Bowl window's already open, do you really care if you're drafting a 23-year-old if he can come in and contribut immediately?
Hey, at least he's not a firefighter. That's all I have to say.
I love this. That right now Kyle's throwing the heat. I was ready to take the center. Now I'm thinking about taking Brady Christensen. Brad, what do you have to say back to him? I mean, here I am, the GM. I got my two scouts arguing. What do you say to that, brother?
He is one of the guys. The reason that I was saying the tackle might fall to you later is because of guys like him later in the draft. I love Brady Christensen. He's one of the guys that obviously I've had to spend more time on because of Kyle. So thank you for that. But yeah, I'm like I said, I think the tackle class is deep enough where you can get a guy just like this later, or if you think that he's falling in the second round and you want to trade up, I think you go snipe from there. But I'm addressing one of those interior centers before anyone else is even looking.
What's your pick?
Oh boy! Holy smokes! These guys put me on the spot. I've got to listen to one of my scouts here. I mean, my offensive line guys telling me to take the off. You know what? Hold on. Yes, you got it, Patrick. You absolutely 100%. Patrick Mahomes literally just went in my ear. He said he wants Brady Christensen. So we're taking the tackle because he needs a tackle. He needs like 2 of them or 3 of them at least. We're taking Brady Christensen, offensive tackle, BYU. Kansas City Chiefs.
There it is. Good job, Kyle. I guess you put up a very good case. And that brings us to the final pick of the first round. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the reigning Super Bowl champions, led by Title Tom himself. Term, you are on the board with the 32nd overall pick.
Yeah, so this is a team that, we've said this a couple of times, but they can literally let the board fall to them.
Yes, they can.
They're going to be in the thick of it again because they've got Tom Brady. They have one maybe glaring need, and that's edge rusher. And since this team is in win now mode and Jason Pierre-Paul is still around, they can take the hometown kid. They can take Gregory Rousseau from Miami, who posted 19.5 tackles for loss and 15.5 sacks in 2019. He's raw, but he's, all the tools are there. This is a pick that they can make, and he doesn't necessarily have to contribute this year. It's not going to make or break them. So
It's a great pick.
we're gonna take Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher, Miami, Florida.
That's a great
All right.
pick.
I want to say that I love Rousseau. I love the pick, but I want to throw a curveball at you guys because this is what I did in my mock draft. And like Term said, they have very few holes. They have a great roster at every position. And if you're not going to draft somebody who's going to immediately produce, why not go with with a backup quarterback?
Yep.
Tom Brady's 44 years old. If you can get Tom Brady's blessing, as long as you're not doing Jordan Love stuff, if you can get Tom Brady's blessing, why not go out and take Kyle Trask to go learn behind the greatest of all time?
Because I'd rather have Davis Mills.
I would rather have. I was just about to. God no.
That's why.
Yeah,
I mean,
I thought you were gonna say Davis Mills.
I'd rather have Davis Mills than Trey Lance.
And on that note, that ends our mock draft. I'm just kidding, but
that's fantastic. So I want to do one quick thing as we finish up, and that's going to be I'm going to ask each of you your favorite pick of the draft. So if you're looking at it real quick, take your time. Now I'm throwing the surprise curveball at you, but I'm going to make Michael go first because he's my producer. He thinks he's a hot shot, and I'll let the other guys think about it. Of course, they can't pick whoever he picks. So what was your favorite pick of the draft? Michael, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I do not think I'm a hot shot. If I managed to get Jamar Chase at number 12 overall to the Eagles, then I would be a hot shot.
That's right. You almost pulled it off, but I yelled at you and ridiculed you into taking him in the at the 11th spot.
I'm just, I got two Dave Gettleman in my head, and I am stalling right now, so I can choose my favorite pick.
Right.
But in all honesty, I'm kind of torn, but I think I'm going to go Elijah Vera Tucker. I mean, you got the top guard in the class, and you got him at 27 overall. It filled a pretty big need on a team that loves to run the football. You're protecting your franchise quarterback. You're going to allow J.K. Dobbins to get more room. And I think he fell farther than I was expecting. And I think they were definitely sexier picks, but I think that's if that happened, I think the Ravens would be thrilled. So I'm going to go with that.
Brad?
Well, I like that one very much. I'm not going to steal that. I did my best. I really did my best to see Jamar Chase fall to the Eagles by picking Jalen Waddle.
I appreciate you, Brad.
My efforts were thwarted. My favorite pick is Christian Darrisaw to the Chargers. Give Herbert all the time that he needs, knowing that he has not been afforded that luxury at Oregon or in his first year, because that offensive line last year was an absolute mess. I was looking it up just a second ago. They came in like the last, almost tied for last in my new pass protection metric that I had done over the last couple of months. And it's just a home run slam dunk pick for me there. I love Darrisaw to the Chargers. They came in tied for last with Washington. So, again, Darrisaw.
Nice. Kyle?
Well, mine's pretty easy, but I'll give you a free one before that, and that's like my least favorite pick is that my guy Trayvon Moehrig didn't even get drafted in the first round.
Right.
That's just as much your fault as anyone else's.
Well, I mean, I still have him graded as like a late first round pick, and I didn't really have any late first round picks. But I will say I think he's a baller at safety. And then my favorite draft pick, it's pretty obvious. I went in the war room and I convinced Jax Falcone to take Brady Christensen. So it has to be that one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You did a great job. So that was an awesome pick, and I really appreciate it because you sold me on it. So I love it. Term, what was your favorite pick of the draft?
I hate to be that guy, but it's Justin Fields going to Detroit, right?
Man, you sniped me. I was going there. That's where I was going. That's a great pick.
I mean, they get the franchise reset. They get what many people think is a generational, quarterback, Deshaun Watson 2.0. He can do it all. seemingly. So yeah, I mean that's if he falls to them or if they're able to trade up and get him, that would be great for the city of Detroit.
God, you definitely took my my pick. I was definitely going there. I think
You still can.
well, certainly Justin Fields was a great spot. I mean, for them to get that turn of fortune is exactly correct, and that's why I was going to say it. I'd say the other one, honestly, and it's just because I think they probably won't do this, and it'll really frustrate me, is the Cincinnati Bengals taking Penei Sewell. I just think that they need to, if they've done everything they need, they just need to make sure that Joe Burrow isn't laying on his back trying to throw it to whomever his wide receivers are. If he can stay standing and be protected, and if Penei Sewell is the player that everybody says he is, man, I love that match in Cincinnati, and I hope they don't make a mistake and pick an outside perimeter offensive player, a la Henry Ruggs last year when the kid from Tampa Bay with Tristan Wirfs. Wirfs was just sitting there for him. I mean, I think he fell all the way to like 12 or something like that. And so do the right thing, Cincinnati. Build your line, and then you got a shot at going to the Super Bowl in the next couple of years if they can just build that offensive line. I mean, that's all they really need. So that was my favorite.
Hey, I tell you what, I'll let you have Fields, and I'll take Micah Parsons to fall into the Patriots there. That's an excellent pick.
Yeah, I didn't want to pick my own pick, but I love Michael Parsons.
Yeah, I won't pick my own pick. You pick my pick, and I'll pick your pick.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I thought of course, Detroit, Justin Fields, but I loved making that Michael Parsons pick. I mean, when you're picking on the clock at 15 with your hometown team, and all of a sudden it's like, you just see him sitting there like, oh, this is so good. So, yeah, it felt really good to land him there. And I'm hopeful that, again, if they don't trade up for your pick and Justin Fields, that they're able to secure a guy like Parsons specifically, or if there's someone even better that falls, obviously. But, guys, you were outstanding. This was a great pod. Of course, as always, a Jax Falcone-led pod went long. What the hell? What is new? But hopefully you guys loved it. Hopefully you're still listening. And, on behalf of everybody at the Undroppables, on behalf of everybody at the Undrafted, Michael Duncan, Kyle Larson, Brad Wire, Randall Kennedy, thank you so much for tuning in, and we out.